What's going on YouTube? Thanks for tuning in. Today's going to be another product review. It's going to be on the American Defense RECON 30mm scope mount. You guys see here. Full disclosure here, I did reach out to American Defense and they were kind enough to send out this scope mount for me to do a review, so I really appreciate it. I do have 3 other scope mounts of theirs as well. This one I have not had time to go to the range yet to sight it in and give a zero test on it. That'll be in my next video. So I'll be doing a video on this scope mount on a 300 blackout, also my AR-308, and we'll be doing a accuracy test and also a return to zero test. So keep an eye out for that video. But today's video is just gonna be strictly on the scope mount itself and the specs and features and whatnot. So we'll jump down closer and take a look at this, and we'll just give a few specs and my overall first impressions of this scope mount. All right, so brought you guys in a little closer. Again, this is the American Defense RECON 30mm 2-inch offset scope mount with the quick detach levers. So just some quick specs on this. This is a 30mm scope mount with a 2-inch offset. And like I mentioned, it's got some QD levers here. We'll go over those in a bit. These do come in different colors. This is the flat dark earth version. They also come in black. This is made of 6061 T6 aluminum and is finished to a hard coat T3 mil-spec anodized. The scope mount here also features American Defense's patented QD auto lock lever system. So this is their patented system. Again, we'll go over this in a bit here. But it's just these levers here that actually locks into place on your upper receiver. You can adjust these to your upper receiver, being that it's on an AR-15, pick rail, AR-10, etc. This will fit almost any rail in the market. Just some cool features about this. Like I said, this is the 30mm scope mount, but once you order this, and if you need a 1-inch scope ring, etc., just buy the scope rings themselves. They make them in 1-inch, 30mm as it's shown here, 32, 34, 35, and also 40mm. This scope ring here does feature the vertical ring tightening system. I do prefer this over the traditional horizontal where you put the scope cap on the tighten crisscross pattern. I like this version because when you tighten the scope, it won't cant your scope left or right. You guys can see here, they do have cutouts in the scope rings themselves. That's just for weight savings. They also offer the scope rings without the cutout here. So if that's your cup of tea, you can go ahead and order those as well. But this one is cut out just for weight savings. Again, going back to the levers here. Again, this is their patent pending system. Basically just a QD system that they have. For you to activate it, you got to push down this button here, and then it'll release. That way, if you have it tightened onto your upper receiver and it gets snagged on something, say brushes, your clothes, carrier, etc., this will not come loose unless you actually push this button here and it'll release. They also make a tactical version. Basically, it's the same thing like this, but it has a little bit more material on the bottom here. So you have a little bit more room to purchase and kind of flick the lever up, versus this is just one streamlined continued piece here. For you to adjust it, it's relatively pretty easy. If you guys look on this side, they do have nuts that are in place here. But if you actually loosen these levers, we'll do the top one here. You can push out and you can actually turn this, loosening it or tightening it. And if you get it correctly into the slot, it's going to fall back into its groove, and then you can actually tighten it that way and then go back in, tighten it like that. I do like this system because the only way for this scope mount to come loose theoretically is if these bolts were to strip, and I don't see that happening because there's a cutout inside of the scope base here that these bolts into. And again, in the back here, the only way for these levers to release is if you actually go inside and push this button right there, and it'll come loose. The way that I tighten this is I try to make both of the levers equal tension. So once you have it adjusted to whichever tension that you like, say if you're going to tighten it and you go put this on the upper receiver and you get tension right here, make sure that it's equal tension on both ends here, not one loose like that and one like this. Reason being is because you just want equal pressure on the scope mount itself when you put it on. That way when you lock it down, it's going to stay in place that much better. And also when you take it off, put it back on, it should return to zero. Again, that'll be a separate video maybe in the next week or so when I take this to the range and do a return to zero test. But yeah, that is it for the specs and features of this scope mount. We'll jump up top and we'll get my final thoughts on it, and then we'll go from there. All right, back up top here again. This is the American Defense RECON 30mm scope mount with a 2-inch offset. Again, I just want to say thanks to American Defense for sending this out for me to do a review. And like I mentioned, I'll be doing a update video on this on a return to zero test, so keep an eye out for that video. Again, 300 blackout, most likely be shooting at 100 yards, just to show that if you take this off and you put it back on, it should return to zero. With all the videos I've seen on YouTube, that is the case, and people are usually spot on back into their original 0. So what are my initial impressions on this scope mount? So far I like it. Machining is really good. The fit and finish is really good. The Cerakote on this looks really nice. I do like the vertical design like mentioned before, just because I've had a lot of scope mounts where that it is the horizontal design and you go tight on one side, the other side kind of clamps down and it kind of turns your scope. You got to re-level it, and then that just causes a headache. Where this, you can actually just put the scope in, tighten down these 2 screws down here, because that's what you want to do first. Put this on a level surface, because if you look on the bottom of the scope mount, it's actually level. You put this on a level surface, and then you can put a bubble leveler on top of your elevation knob here, and then tighten these down to spec. Another feature I like about this scope mount is the recessed bolts here. That way you know for a fact that these are not going to come loose unless these levers are pushed. And for some odd reason, if these strip out, which I don't think they will, just because they're recessed pretty deep, your scope mount is not going anywhere. I also like the fit and finish of this. The FDE looks really good. It kind of contrasts really nice with anything on your rifle if you have anything FDE on there. I did notice that this one is a little bit shinier, a little bit more on the bronze side compared to traditional flat dark earth, like the Magpul flat dark earth or any other flat dark earth patterns out there. But I kind of like that because it kind of offsets everything. One last feature I do like about this, like I mentioned, is that you can switch out just the rings themselves. So if you have multiple scopes and you like swapping scopes and optics out, you can actually just order the scope rings themselves. Again, anywhere from 1 inch to 40 millimeters. And it costs about $86 just for the scope rings themselves. But yeah, that's all I have for today's video. Again, I just want to say thanks to American Defense for sending this out for me to do a review. Keep an eye out for the Return to Zero video here shortly. Keep an eye out for the Return to Zero update video on the scope ring on my 300 Blackout and my 308. If you haven't done so, hit that subscribe button down below. That way you guys will be notified when I post new videos, just like the one I'll be doing an update video on this. That way you don't miss out any updates. Again, thanks to American Defense for sending this out for me to review. Local company here in Wisconsin, American made. Any questions you guys have, leave in the comment section below. Until next time, be safe, everyone.